This is the Marketing for Learning podcast, the only podcast in the world that's guaranteed to help learning and development professionals enhance their skills, capabilities, and knowledge when it comes to marketing for learning. I think we can safely say that marketing for learning is a thing. Well, hello there, marketing friends. It's Ashley, and we're back with the Marketing for Learning podcast. I'm here this week because I want to talk about Learning at Work Week. Any of you guys that follow me on LinkedIn will have seen I put a post up about this yesterday. I have kind of mixed feels about Learning at Work Week, if I'm being entirely honest, and that's because I don't know whether it's doing us any favours. So I want to just spend 10-15 minutes chatting through Learning at Work Week. Is it something that's good for us in L&D? Is it something that we should be doing marketing around? Or is it just setting us up to fail? Looking forward to discussing it with you guys because I am just winging it. Okay, so Learning at Work Week, if you guys aren't familiar, I don't even know why it exists, where it's come from. I kind of feel like it's a hallmark holiday for learning and development. Someone somewhere stuck their fingers in the air and said, hey, we should have a week dedicated to learning in the workplace. Well, that's cool, but we're all kind of learning all the time at work, so that kind of feels like a bit of a misnomer. Anyways, but I digress. So my issues with Learning at Work Week kind of spur from being in this industry for, over a decade now. And historically, I would often see Learning at Work Week be the only time that L&D would think about marketing and communications. Suddenly like, oh, well, we've got this week where everybody clearly wants to do learning. So let's do loads of promotion around it and get people learning. That makes perfect sense. Look, it's better than nothing. But I will delve into why I think that's problematic anyways later. But I think more recently, obviously the narrative and agenda around marketing and its importance within L&D has become more prominent. And I think we're starting to realize that this is something we should be doing a bit more of. But Learning at Work Week still seems to captivate learning professionals in terms of this is a great opportunity to do some marketing. But is it? Okay, there's two ways you can look at Learning at Work Week. You can look at it like a lot of people do as a single entry point to learning and development, a single week of marketing and communications activities, a single opportunity to increase marketing and communications and get people engaged with learning. That's one school of thought. If I do a lot of marketing around Learning at Work Week, people are going to start using my learning. I'm going to get people more aware of what it is that we offer. And eventually they're just going to start learning because of that. My engagement problems are fixed. Woohoo! Magic. The other school of thought, and some people actually commented this on my LinkedIn post, and I think is the more valuable of the two approaches, and that is using the event, i.e. the week itself, as a marker within a campaign. So either using it as part of a campaign, so, a beginning, and maybe, the middle of the campaign is the event, the week, Learning at Work Week. But you're still investing a lot of energy way before the event itself to get people excited, pique interest, build momentum, ensure you're not starting marketing and communications from a standing start. We know how difficult that is. But then also ensuring, of course, that once you've finished that event that week, that the marketing doesn't just fall off the edge of a cliff and die a sudden, sad and painful death. If it's playing a role in a bigger campaign, I think things like that can really work. So let's have a look at these two different approaches and discuss what might work and what might not when it comes to marketing and using Learning at Work Week as part of a marketing initiative. So let's go for the first school of thought that I talked about. So just the week of marketing. I can say unequivocally, without a doubt, that just doing marketing for a week is not going to get you results. So if you're only going to have a buzz of activity for a week, it's a flurry of social posts and a SharePoint article and a new video and some emails and a mention on your all hands call, like, yeah, it's a lot of activity, but it doesn't do anything. And I'll tell you why. You might get a little flurry of activity. You might get a spike of activity, a small spike of activity. You might, because there's always people who are curious. And if your marcoms is good, it will still get their attention for a very short period of time. And that's the point. If your ultimate goal is to build better engagement with learning, change learner behavior, i.e. influence how they interact with learning, build learning habits, build better behaviors around learning, whilst also shifting attitudes and building trust with audiences, that's not accomplished in a week. So there's just no real way to get long-term results from short-term marketing interventions. Well, I mean, I don't know, what's the half-life of a week-long campaign? There is no ability for permanence in people's minds when something enters and leaves so quickly. We know that there needs to be multiple touch points with audiences over a prolonged period of time in order to really build the idea of something in their minds and to change behaviors, capture hearts and minds. So using a single week to be the kind of linchpin of your marcoms is, in my opinion, quite problematic, because it showcases a very outdated attitude towards marketing in general, in that, we're going to get immediate results from our marketing efforts. And, again, having been a marketer for over 10 years, I can tell you that there's very few marketing interventions that are going to get you results if you're just doing it for a week. Even the shortest campaigns that we do are 3 months. And, we do have some great examples of 3-month campaigns that get genuine traction. But 1 week is very, very unlikely to really get you to where you need to be. And I think if you really stop and consider why you're doing Learning at Work Week and the goals underneath it and the purpose of it, you're going to end up landing back on the fact that you want to alter audience sentiment. You want to get people more engaged, and therefore you need to expand beyond that week. The much better approach is using Learning at Work Week as part of a bigger strategy or part of a bigger piece of the pie. And that's because you can then have that longevity. You can have a campaign that's at least 3 months, but maybe more like 6 or 12 even. Maybe some of these learning events sit within it, one of which is Learning at Work Week. I personally don't see why we latch on to this specific week. Like, if you want it to be in September because that suits your organization better and you build your strategy around that, then why not? I genuinely feel like someone arbitrarily selected a week in May to be Learning at Work Week, but you can make it whatever you want. You can call it something else. You can take the idea of Learning at Work Week, but make it work for you. But make sure that you're building consistent comms around that piece, and it is not just that 1 week of activity, And if you are going to use Learning at Work Week as the big kind of precipice of everything, just make sure that you're building that momentum and that you're having that peak and, that rise in comms and then that, back down. So yes, there might be a bigger increase of activity in comms around the time of the event, but it shouldn't ever stop. There shouldn't ever be silence. When we talk about hum, sing, shout, it should be humming in the background at the very least at all times. So I don't think that we need to entirely throw Learning at Work Week out and put it in the sea, but I do think that we need to take a moment, have a pause, and consider why. Why are we doing this? What's the purpose of it? What are we trying to achieve? If you answer that last question first, I expect you'll probably come to a conclusion that just doing a week's marketing isn't gonna help you actually accomplish those goals. And therefore, you've got to zoom out, you've got to do a bit more strategy, you've got to do a bit more planning, and you've got to think big picture in terms of how you can influence audiences' behavior and how you can really, really engage with them over a period of time. If learning at work week plays a role in that, fantastic. But make sure it's factored into other things. Don't just jump on the bandwagon because it's there, because it's just not going to get you where you want to get to, at least in my opinion. Of course, I'd love to hear from anybody who has had success with just doing marketing for a week. Like I said, in my experience, I haven't seen it myself, but I would, if you've done benchmarking and you've done a week-long campaign around learning at work week and you genuinely have improved results as a consequence of that, then ping me, because I would love to chat with you. I love being proven wrong. I love challenging my own beliefs as well, and my own understanding and knowledge of marketing and how things work. So if you are having success, please come and tell me, because I am not, guys, listen, I am not always right. Don't tell my husband. But yeah, I think learning at work week, it has its pros and cons. To me, there's more cons than pros, and I think we can almost be more strategic when we don't have this time constraint or this random May date that we've got to stick to. We can build out things that are relevant for our organization. We can rename it to fit in with the idiosyncrasies of our culture, and I just think there's a lot more opportunity. So take the idea of learning at work week and build a proper marketing campaign around it. Build messaging that suits your organization. Build out assets and taglines that are targeted at your personas. Use this as an inspiration for building out a marketing campaign that is a true campaign and is genuinely focused on getting you results. All right, so that's it from me, guys. Another week. I wouldn't quite call this an Ashley rant. I'm not ranting. I just don't know how I quite feel about learning at work week. It gives me the mixed feels. I don't like it, if I'm entirely honest, but I do think there are opportunities if we do it right. Just to give you guys an update, I will still be on the podcast, but you might not hear my voice as much for the next couple of months, because if you don't know, I'm 34 weeks pregnant. I'm hoping to go on mat leave at the end of the month and take more than the 2 months I did with my son. And so I will occasionally record a podcast and whatnot, but you're probably likely to hear more of Han's voice for the next couple of months, just whilst I figure out how to navigate life with 2 children. Wish me luck. Okay. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being my compadre on the journey that is marketing for learning. Lots of love, and I'll be back soon. See you later.